Moth Journal, Paul McMichael, Buchanan, Michigan, October 1988. Like most silk moths, Cecropia has an absent tongue and cannot feed. All of its eating must happen while in a caterpillar stage. As a caterpillar, Cecropia eats just about anything it can crawl to in the trees and bushes of its habitat. Maple trees, apple and crabapple trees, walnut, buckthorn, willow. The caterpillar then enters the pupae stage, spins a tough cocoon to last the winter, and then hatches all through the spring into the late summer, and sometimes, like this year, if fall is unusually warm, adult moths can be found as late as October. What I saw last month on Main Street were males in a late rush to find females, and Mrs. Shelton said that it is unusual for a mating episode to happen right in town, away from the forests and swamps. She says it might be a sign that Cecropia's habitat is shrinking. These adult male moths live in a state of urgency. They have some 2 weeks to mate, and they are in a hurry. I'm in a hurry to find them, determined to get back to the river every night I can get away. I invited Kathy, but she doesn't want to come with me, and I'm relieved. I must decide what to do about Kathy. Chapter 6, Rage and Ruin. Abe drove to my house that night. I knew what he'd come to tell me. But first, he came inside to visit with my grandparents. They were always thrilled to see him. They had a bunch of questions about the mysteriously unavailable Nora, questions that I couldn't stand to listen to after what I'd been through that day. While he chatted with them, I went outside to Graham's backyard flower garden, my anger at Abe returning. I needed to do something physical. Pulling weeds with my bare hands helped. When Abe finally came out into the dusk, looking for me, I pretended not to notice. I kept my eyes on the ground in front of me until the faded denim cuffs of his jeans were directly in my line of vision. "Can I talk to you for a minute, Pete?" he asked me from above. "I already know what you're going to say," I told him. Dig, dig, pull. "I don't think you do. I don't think you understand how bad I feel about what happened today. I don't understand a lot of things lately, if you want me the truth." Dig, dig, pull. A pause. "Can I tell you something, Pete? Can I tell you a couple things I never told you before?" I shrugged, but kept digging. "Sure, tell me. I can't wait." Abe began hesitantly. When you found Paul's moths back in the spring, and you were so excited about finding them and taking them, it was kind of a relief for me. And I didn't tell you then, but those moths, that collection, it always made me feel really bad. I didn't want to keep it, but I never felt right about throwing it away, either. I'd keep the box hidden in the barn at Riverside, and then once I built the cabin, I put it down in the basement, out of sight where I wouldn't have to think about it, wouldn't have to remember what was going on when it came into existence, when my brother was a moth collector. What was going on? It was right before our ma died, Pete. Shit, I thought. I started digging again. When I saw how excited you were about finding the collection, well, I was really glad I'd kept it. I was happy for you. Happy that you were so psyched to draw moths. You have so much talent, Pete. It was like you were the perfect person to take them off my hands once and for all. I was. But see, I didn't even consider that Nora existed then. I never thought about her. Hell, the last thing I expected was that she ever show up and want anything from me. At this, I sat back on my heels and faced him. "Well, you sure were wrong about that one, Abe, because I'd say she wants plenty from you." "Pete, she's trying to figure out who her dad was." "Fine, okay, she's figuring out who her dad was. Fine, so you guys can sit around the cabin and talk about it for hours. Fine, even though it's pointless." I was digging again, dirt and sand flying around me, a kind of smoke screen I was throwing up between us. And besides, what does that have to do with something that you already officially gave me? Things are different now. That was the last thing I wanted to hear. "Abe, you gave them to me. You said I should have them. I'm all involved with them." I know that. I know this is hard, but I'm asking you to please try and understand the position I'm in. Pete, I really need to give the moth collection to Nora. There, he said it, and I expected it. But the words already made me rock backwards, as though he'd struck me. I lowered my head and gritted my teeth in a kind of mental pain. Abe crouched down beside me and put a firm hand on my shoulders, the pressure adding to my distress. I shook his hand away, stood up, and lurched toward the house. "Don't go in," Abe said. "Stay out and talk to me a little while." But I kept moving in a straight line without looking back. "I'll see you tomorrow, okay?" Abe called. I let the screen door slam. On the way down the hallway to my room, Graham planted herself in front of me. "What's going on between you and Abe?" "Nothing." I tried to brush past her. "Peter, I know when something is wrong." She had a certain look in her eyes that meant she would not give up until she had her answer. A look that was part scientist and part something purely Graham. So I told her that what had happened that day and finished with a lament. "It's just not right to take the whole collection away from me when I was already working with it." He said to himself, he said I was a perfect person to give the moths to. "Abe said that?" Graham asked. "What did he mean when he said that?" He meant that I was the right kind of person to understand, to appreciate." "They did belong to the girl's father, Peter," Graham interrupted. "She doesn't care about them, Graham," I exclaimed. "She's not the kind of girl who would care about a moth collection, even if it was her dad's." "What kind of girl is she, Peter?" She's a girl who doesn't understand anything," I sputtered. "She would never get why someone would want to collect moths in the first place. She's just trying to get back at me because I refuse to put up with her insanity." Graham listened to these accusations calmly. "You may be right about her," she said finally. "Perhaps she only wants to stir up trouble, but she's the daughter of Paul McMichael. Your new-found interest in moths doesn't change that. I expect you know exactly what you have to do." She leaned closer, her eyes wide over the top of her glasses. I couldn't look away. "Give them to her, son," she whispered. "Be a man." Even before I pulled into the cabin driveway, I could hear Abe's stereo. That's how loud she was playing Creedence. "Bad Moon Rising" was pounding out of the house, a wall of music around the cabin. I strode up the porch stairs, carrying the metal box by its handle, and as I squinted through the screen, I heard another sound, a loud motoring sound. Abe's vacuum cleaner. Nora appeared, moving between the rooms, pushing the vacuum, wearing a tank top and boxer shorts, her rashy legs smeared with lotion. She disappeared again without seeing me at the door. After a moment, she appeared again, and this time I saw that she was crying as she vacuumed, tears shining on her cheeks as she mouthed the words to the song. "I fear rivers overflowing, I hear the voices of rage and ruin." Her face looked as puffy and strained as it had the first time I'd seen her. She did a half turn with the vacuum, saw my shadow at the screen, and let out a yell. "Calm down," I cried, but there was no way for her to hear my words above the music. She put the box down, pushed the screen door open, and strode over to Abe's stereo and turned the music off. Nora was shouting something at me the whole time, and as the volume faded, I heard the tail end of it. "Scaring me half to death, and who said you could just come in here?" The vacuum cleaner was still roaring. She fumbled for the power button and turned that off too, plunging us into silence. We stared at each other. Then I turned, went back to the screen door, retrieved the metal box, and set it down on the floor between her bare feet and my work boots. She looked down at the box, wiping her eyes roughly with the backs of her hands. "Are they all there?" she asked. In reply, I used my boot to push the metal box closer to her, a careless gesture. "Including the one you broke," I said. "And just between you and me, I don't recommend that you throw them, no matter how pissed off you are, because some of us won't put up with your bullshit." Nora found her voice. "Oh my God, you think I want them just to get back at you?" I was halfway out the door. She called to me from inside the screen. "This wasn't about getting back at you. This has nothing to do with you." And then, one last shriek, her voice became hysterical again. "I have nothing from him. I have nothing that was his." I never wanted to lay eyes on her again.